Hello everyone, my name is Vava, founder, chief coffeeholic at Vava Coffee, co-founder GENTE Del Futuro. Now, the subject we're tackling today regarding producers and trying to have the industry change their perception on how producers should be depicted is one that is very close to my heart. Not just because I'm from a producing country, being a producer myself, I have always felt that there is this perception and power play that rides in this industry and how buyers would rather tell stories or buyers would rather see us when they are marketing our coffees. Now, the purpose for my session is to blatantly just say, we need a more collaborative effort in storytelling when it comes to marketing coffees. And in as much as we know that the power balance has always been more in favor of the importer, I think it's time the industry reckoned with the fact that listening mechanisms need to be improved, especially from the importer's side or the roaster's side. They should lean in more in trying to find out how these producers want to be perceived. They may think that producers are just lowly farmers who may not have an idea of how their story needs to be told, but surprise, surprise, we all have opinions, and there are, certain depictions of producers that we've seen out there that are certainly uncomfortable, especially for people like myself to look at, and there's a narrative that's certainly been pushed over time that we need to change. So hopefully through this session and through some of the work that I have put out in terms of the book project Coffee Milk Blood, roasters, importers can start asking themselves critical questions around how can we better storytell and how can we collaboratively work with people in producing countries to actually better tell their stories. As someone who's grown up in post-colonial Kenya, I won't lie that there's a lot of colonial influence in how my country is depicted and how women are seen, and what the most popular images of Africa that are put out there and of producers are mostly the pitiful images, the images that are sort of relaying that story that if you buy this coffee, you're helping a producer. It's never been depicted in more of like a business sort of engagement, that it's both parties that are benefiting, because if the producer was not growing the coffee, then there's no lovely tasting Kenyan coffee to put out in the market. So why then do we choose to have like a one-sided narrative, that one of like the dirty hands, the dirty feet, the woman with the baby on the back, help these farmers? No, this is an equitable, we would like to move to more equitable business transactions whereby it's, both sides are benefiting, it's quid pro quo. And this needs to be depicted in the storytelling and in the imagery. And of course, a lot of producers also, based off of just what they've been exposed to, may not be very vocal about this, because there is, neo-colonialist notions that the white person is definitely the one that knows how to market the coffee. But case in point, I have had the luxury of having a lot of exposure to the Western world. I know this makes a few people uncomfortable by being the fact that I challenge the notions that I see out there in the market. I challenge how people want to talk about me, about my company, about my people. So, and I know the industry has oftentimes been more comfortable with dealing with an illiterate farmer, a farmer who's dictated to, than when you find someone who actually speaks up and knows about their own culture, their own place, and the economic benefits that are always more beneficial to the importer and the roaster side, and none of those trickle down here at origin. People like me are sometimes deemed problematic or like giving people a hard time, whereas I don't see that as really being what it's about. What this relationships between buyer producer should be is mutually beneficial and not parasitic relationships. So if we can move the industry towards images that celebrate the people, the place, the culture. And I've said this so many times, Africa has given a lot to the world, but this discussion is not just limited to the continent of Africa. It goes beyond Kenya, it goes beyond Africa. It traverses Latin America and the producers there as well. Producers are more than just the cherries they pick. They've got lives, they've got other businesses that they run, and these should be celebrated. And I have been talking about this to challenge the roaster, the importer, to move beyond what we have traditionally seen in the marketplace, because coffee is more than just the cherries and the washing stations. How many washing station images are we gonna play around with, and how many hands picking cherries? Let us get more creative about this storytelling, but then also let us honor producers in the manner that they need to be honored. I've always talked about the importance of owning your narrative. When you find a producer that is knowledgeable enough, or someone who is bold enough to tell you, hey, this is how I would like to be seen, this is how I'd like to be depicted, and these are the things that I think make me most proud of who I am, why don't we listen? So I hope I'll leave you with food for thought. I hope we can engage in a conversation about this, but I leave you with a short video about why I have worked on this quite intently, and the work doesn't stop here. It doesn't stop here with the book Coffee, Milk, Blood. It goes beyond that. And I would like to collaborate with other industry players to try and create some guidelines, just rough guidelines of what people should be looking at when coming to producing countries, and what we should be doing more ethically in terms of just relationships with producers and storytelling. How can we improve coffee marketing such that it's not exploitative in its nature, and we're speaking to both sides of the spectrum. Thank you. Why Coffee, Milk, Blood? And from my many years of having worked with various coffee communities and various community organizations, I see one of my key roles as a translator. As a translator, part of my mandate is to take the things that I hear when I listen at the table and the stories that I know I need to tell to create impact, and to combine them into something that is a tangible reflection of all that there is to translate. It allows us to move forward in whatever social issue it is that we are trying to address. And so that is why in my world, storytelling to create impact, measuring that impact, or designing opportunities for impact is essential. It means that I am an expert citizen who creates space at the table for the citizen experts. It means that I am a storyteller who tries to tell authentic stories of the people I meet and design with. It means that I'm a translator who tries to bring tangibility to the vision of places and services that speak to the needs and aspirations of the human experience. There are hardly any stories told by the coffee producer or the person living in that country who experiences all the emotions that arise from working in the coffee industry. From the growing of the coffee, the processing, producer mobilization, this story has always been from the point of view of the buyer, the roaster, the trader. Hardly ever do we encounter stories, especially from the African continent, that accurately touch on the perception of this continent and the real story of a social entrepreneur's journey within the coffee sector. This work delves into the definition of empowerment from the communities that we seek to empower, storytelling from the point of view of the producers themselves, and what the narrative should be as you buy their beans or as you interact with them in their communities. We look to portray the images of an African coffee producer, African women and their surroundings in a more dignified, real manner, as opposed to that of a pitiful, struggling environment. This is a place of opportunity and promise for both youth, women, and the entrepreneurs who dare to dream and try. We look to trade with the Western world in more beneficial and profitable relationships. I put this work out in the hope that young girls and boys growing up in Africa can have a realistic and relatable example to look up to, and to dare to dream and take a risk. We need to tell our own stories and influence the change that we seek in our lives and communities. There is so much more to tell about Africa than the usual stories of war, famine, floods, and disease. And until the lion itself learns how to write, the narrative will always glorify the hunter.